Well, here we are once again at our old friend Mallard, the world's fastest steam locomotive at 126 mph. I've forgotten what, 1938 or something? It was something really strange when Michael Palin was going to Killaloglacalsh in the 80s. He stopped off to see this, and the time between Mallard getting the record and the 1980 thing where Michael Palin did it was as long as from the 1980s to when I was watching Michael Palin last year. But the thing is, the 1930s one seemed a lot longer ago. So anyway, Mallard. Now, one of the weird things about Mallard was it had a bit of a problem with the oil boxes on the axles. And what they did was they put a nasty foul smell in the oil. So when the oil boxes broke, the driver could smell the nasty foul smell and knew it was time to slow down, except on the record breaking account, they didn't bother slowing down, they just kept going with the pedal to the metal, or whatever you do in steam locomotives, because I'm guessing they don't have a pedal to the metal. Now, as you can probably tell, I'm using a lav mic and the wireless system from Sony, so this should sound okay. Now, this is a Sony ZV-E10 4K video camera. You don't actually give anybody the 4K files because they're huge and hardly anybody's got a TV that will show them. What they do is they let you do this panning and cropping in post. See, I'm not actually moving the camera just now, but what I'll do later is I will pan across the terrain and you should get this lovely smooth ease in and ease out pan shot without me having to actually move at all, which is great. As you can plainly see from the plate on the side, this sucker here is the Duchess of Hamilton. There was also the Duchess of Sutherland, which still exists, and that was the Lego train that I got in about 1978. More interestingly about the Duchess of Sutherland was that she spent a long time at Butlins-on-Ayre, and there are photographs of it on a truck going past the grammar school. Eventually she came out of Butlins-on-Ayre and went back into preservation. Last time I checked, it was still running, but I don't know if she's still running just now. I can check that later and let you know if you're really interested in whether the Duchess of Sutherland is still running. Anyway, this is Duchess of Hamilton. This one's streamlined. The Sutherland that I've got, the Lego version, isn't. It was streamlined at one point. They also had to drop the height of the cab on the Duchess of Sutherland because it was too high for a bridge somewhere. So they dropped the height on it, but I think they restored it a few years ago. When I say a few years ago, I'm thinking at least 20 years ago. But that's not that many years ago anymore. This is Mallard's tender, and you can see there's a slope where the coal would slide down towards the stoker. So they didn't have to go away to the back to get the coal, it would all slide down, and then the water will be in behind that, and well, water just moved anyway, so that wasn't a problem. Some tenders for cross-border services actually had a wee corridor, so that you could change stoker and fireman without having to stop the train. I don't see one there. It might be in that LMS Duchess over there. I will go read the card and find out. So like me, you're probably thinking, that sucker is just straight up gorgeous, it's so lovely, and you're right, it is. But better than that, it's also a Deltic. And you're thinking, what's so great about a Deltic? Well, Deltics have got cylinders arranged in a triangle, so the cylinder doesn't really have a top. The other end of the cylinder is another piston. This is a model of the Deltic, and you can see why it's called a Deltic, because it's triangular, and there's pistons that are opposed to each other, but no actual top on the cylinders. There's a piston there and a piston there, piston there and piston there, and piston there and there. And it's diesel, so it uses compression ignition. So when the pistons go together, the diesel explodes, pushes the pistons back, and it just works. It's an amazing engine. I did see one built at Lego a few years ago, and it worked. I mean, it didn't set on fire, but it did move properly, and they're just quite remarkable. So here we got a nice Class 40 diesel. I think they're lovely. I think they're just great looking. They're so nice looking trains. Not as interesting as the Deltic from an engine point of view. They're still pretty good. However, what nobody's noticing is what's in there. The thing that's in there is the Flying Scotsman. But people keep walking past. Steam engine behind me is called Evening Star, and it's a bit of a sad steam engine because it was the last one they made until about 10 years ago when they made the A4 Peppercorn. But that was the last actual in-service one, and it was only in service for about 5 years. Came online in 1960. At the time, British Rail had a projected lifespan of 30 years. So in the 1950s, somebody in British Rail reckoned that steam engines were still going to be running in the 1990s. It's got all this lovely copper work on the outside and a copper top on the funnel because they knew it was going to be the last one, so they decided to make it look a bit special. It was the only one in the class that got a name, the rest of them just got numbers. And as far as I know, it's the only one still on preservation, but I can check that out later if anyone needed to. But there you go, Evening Star. Last UK steam engine that was ever really on mainline tracks. This is sort of funny. You don't really need a turntable with diesel locomotives. That's why you don't see them very much anymore. You need them with steam because it's better if you can look out the front. So steam locomotives would get turned round in a turntable. Diesels would get cabs at the end, so it doesn't matter. However, this turntable was built in 1954. Steam engines only had about 10-15 years to go at that point. You'd think they would probably know that the writing was on the wall, but there you go. Anyway, it doesn't actually do anything anymore, it just sits here. They can move it, sometimes use it for moving trains around, locos around, but I find it a bit strange that they still made one as late as 1954. Agenoria from 1829. Looks a bit more like a beam engine because it's got these beam things going on up at the top and the cylinders are vertical. It was an early kind of steam engine. The guy that worked on it helped work with Trevithick. There's a statue of Trevithick somewhere. But it wasn't as good as Rocket. This isn't the real Rocket. The real Rocket was in the other hall, but that's closed for redevelopment just now, so I don't know if Rocket's actually still in the building just now. They might have taken it away somewhere safe. This is a 1930s copy, but Rocket blew the rest away because it's a better boiler and better designed cylinders. It just won the day. And that's a copy of it, but not the real one. I've seen the real one. It's a bit more drab and busted looking. Obviously Victorian because it's got this big sucker driving wheel. I'm going to have to check when this was made, hang on a second. 1870, so yes, Victorian. The idea was you had a big wheel and you put all your weight on that one big wheel and then you drove the one big wheel, but I feel like fashion and they went for like 3 driving wheels instead. And I just met somebody from here and we started talking about Ronaldo's. These things happen. I'm also going to get my highlights blown out because there's a huge big window over that side, so I'm thinking probably too bright on that side, and yeah. Let's see what I can do.